you and your wife blew up on Instagram with a video of you guys sitting down and having a real conversation. Walk me through that and like how that started.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's your first question. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, we did. We posted one time on TikTok, and it was like, I think our second episode of our podcast. And it was we just barely started it. We really didn't know like which direction we wanted to take it. We just knew that people weren't really talking about in-depth things in relationships. And if they did, then there was tons of shame around it, right? Which meant that there was like disconnection, and there was like, we saw so much resentment in relationships. And so we were just like, well, why don't we just start talking about it, right? Yeah. Like, let's just make it normal, especially in Utah where like we grew up with Christianity. It was very like taboo to talk about sex, taboo to talk about suicide, taboo to talk about really anything that wasn't like straight by the book Christianity, right? And so that's kind of the basis of why we started our podcast, was just so to normalize deep conversations and open conversations in relationships, right? I think, go for it.
What do you think the biggest resentment builder in relationships is today?
I think it is the unknown of the person that you're sitting across from. And that can be talked in so many different ways. I think on Jimmy's podcast, when I talked on his podcast, he asked me what the number one fight between couples is. And I think it's not understanding that your partner is completely different than you, right? And so resentment comes from, hey, I want to live my life a certain way, and we chose to be together, but you are not living up to the way that I want to live it, right? And so it's miscommunication.
Yeah.
It's not actually knowing what your partner is wanting. And it's really hard to know that if you don't know what you want. And so relationships get really construed because we go in with just this preconceived notion that everything should be amazing, and that we should just know from getting married what we're going to be doing.
So how do you figure out like what your partner is like hiding and things like that?
Well, it's not necessarily figure out what they're hiding. If they're hiding anything, there's a reason for it.
Sure.
Right. And so it's really figuring out who your partner is. And in doing that, you have to figure out who you are. And that's what it's like. I can't ask you what you want to do with your life if I don't know what I want to do with mine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that relationships, we talk about how we're supposed to conform to somebody else's life. The way that I love to look at relationships is that like, I'm going to build my life, right? And I want you to build yours as well. And if we can both do that, then that means that we have this construct of two different lives. That means that we can build something together.
Yeah.
So I think that it's not necessarily just one sit down or one conversation. It's like every time that something comes up that you may not agree with, let's talk about it. That's where it's at.
So how do you like, without making that into like a confrontation or something like that, how do you normalize that in a relationship versus it being something that people are scared to bring up, scared to talk about? And because I think there is a lot of resentment in relationships, and that resentment starts to build and build and build. And the like farther you build this wall up almost, the harder it is to like bring something up to that person. So how do you like normalize that in a day to day?
Yeah. How do you talk to your spouse? How do you talk to your partner, right? Like that's essentially what we're saying.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
How do you actually bring something up that might cause controversy so that it's actually productive? Yeah, the basis of that question, it's a simple answer, and it's understand yourself first, right? So it's, this is it's so general, but here's the thing is, if I'm going to bring something up to my partner, right, I have to make it about me and not about them. And I think that that's a simple answer.
Absolutely.
But then the way that you do that is, in my opinion, solely emotion based. And it's saying, hey, the reason that I like to comport myself this way or do this certain thing is because this is how I was brought up, and this was just normal for me, right? Yeah. And I don't do it for you or to like lash out against you or for like a fight or anything like that. This is just my life and the way that I've lived it. And then, this is a deeper conversation for different emotions. But if you just stay very simple, because I don't want to make it complicated, but you just say like, hey, I feel really guilty when this happens, and I don't know how to tell you that. Like guilt is a really big emotion that comes up in relationships.
Yeah.
Or you say, hey, it really scares me to tell you this, but I know if I don't want to be scared in our relationship, right? So I might as well just talk about it.
I think it's an interesting dynamic between, I would say that I am dating my best friend, and I think like you're married to your best friend. Sure. And I think, I see these things, and it's an interesting dynamic that I've like started to see, because I've always treated like my male relationships, you know, kind of almost like just more, not intimate in a sense, but intimate. It's like, you know, we talk about deeper things. We, you know, try to like level each other up and things like this. And so it's interesting on the, like, how different it is from like male relationships to like your spouse or your significant other. And like some of it's the same, and some of it, like, that's some of the amazing parts, and some of it's like really, really hard. So I've just like started to notice that a little bit.
Well, it's cool. Hold on to your question. I want to know what it is.
Yeah.
But you baby it into it, because you're talking about like, hey, this is my guy, like this is my bro, and I can talk to him about anything. I can also tell him to fuck off, and I can also tell him that when he's being a dick, right? But I can't do that with my girl, right? There comes a time when not necessarily you're going to be that direct or mean to them, but there comes a time when you can hold them very much accountable to who they are if you have the basis of those conversations. Because with your buddies, right, there's not so much weighing on the decisions of what you're going to say, because for some reason, judgment and forgiveness is just really quick, right? In male relationships. That's like, we teach this concept, or I love this concept that you say you are dating your best friend, right? I'm married to my best friend, right? And it's like, treat your significant other like your best friend. Like, treat them like your buddy. That's the type of relationship that I want. Like, I want to go on vacations with my buddy. I want to like hang out with, you know what I mean? Like, and I want to be able to like discuss and forgive and not judge, just like I would my best guy friend with my wife as well. Right. And if you can't like even envision that, or even like imagine that, like if that isn't even on the table for you, right, start small. It's just like, hey, what's one thing that maybe I'm scared to tell them? And like, that's where I'm going to go. Yeah. But it's not about them. I'm not going to say, hey, like you fucked up, or like you're doing something wrong. It's like, hey, this scares me to even say, because this is something that I'm going through, right? Yeah. But I want our relationship to be at a spot where I can actually communicate with you. So something
that you've obviously talked about before is the emotion chart. This is something that really helped me with my relationships and my family and everything like that. And I think what I pick up from, you know, what you're saying on like how to bring those up is almost identifying what emotion that you feel, and then trying to find the answers to, you know, what's around that emotion, and like the reasons why you're angry, or, you know, sad or prideful, or, you know, whatever it is like that. And being able to maybe just like ask it in a way that it just like helps you understand that, and helps you understand yourself better. Yeah, the map of consciousness, or the emotion chart that you're referring to, that changed my life and saved my life, because it just made everything so much more simple. I see it as like 16 stages of progression in life, and how you can use it is in a myriad of ways. But the way that you're referring to is like, I'm going to ask you a question from the emotion scale, and you can answer from the emotion scale. Hey, it makes me really nervous and scared to talk to you about this, but this has been on my mind. I've been ruminating about it, and I need to ask you, because all I want in our relationship is to move forward, and for me not to feel this way, right? But it's going to make me sad if we don't have this conversation. So we just talked about grief, fear, and desire. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then the same way, it's like, hey, from the other side, it's like, hey, I actually want to talk to you about this. I don't know how to, and it actually makes me really scared. But if we don't, I'm going to be sad if we don't talk about it, right? And then all of these things, like if we don't actually say, if we don't communicate, if we don't address them, they put us down to an apathetic state, and then we don't talk, and it causes more disconnection, right? And then that underneath this apathetic state is where shame and guilt live. Like, and that's where every relationship goes to die. It's why religion for some people doesn't work. It's why relationships end up like in divorce, because if I'm guilty or if I'm shameful about something that's happening and I don't address it, right, then we go back to apathy, because we don't want to feel those things. Anyway, I could go on forever about it. So how do we get from like guilt or apathy, you know, like you said, the reason a lot of religion doesn't work for people is because they feel so guilty or so apathetic to the religion that they just feel like they're in a box, like in a hole almost, and that they couldn't dig themselves out of it. And so I think that's a reason that a lot of people like do leave religion, or maybe like get divorced and things like this, because they feel that it's too far gone. So like, is it just as simple as a conversation that you have to have? And like,
well, that's why I believe that like it's like the 16 steps to what I call enlightenment, right? That like Christ consciousness. Yeah, because the emotion chart goes over 16 emotions, right? And no, yeah, I could get really hippie with it, but that's okay.
No, do it.
Your question is a good one, because is it a simple conversation, or is it a realization of how you want to live, right? So I believe that, like, we've talked all the way up till desire, right? After desire is ego, and that's where everything goes to die. If I'm egotistical in the church, right, that's when I'm just not going to start believing. If I'm egotistical in my relationships, that's when I'm just going to peace, right? So it goes desire and then pride, and pride is where your ego lives. So if you know that you're in this egotistical place, right, where you're trying to defend yourself constantly, where you're starting to get angry, right, where you're pushing people away, then you know that there's actually somewhere to go, either in that relationship, and it's either I can't stand this anymore and I'm going to leave, or, hey, I can't stand being this way and we need to push past all the things that we're actually not addressing. Because I believe the answer to your question is, yes, it is conversations, but it's also embodying these emotions and these states of reality. So if I'm egotistical, the next thing that needs to happen for me, because the emotion right above pride is courage. So that means I have to leave all of this ego behind. I have to become, essentially, like, shed this skin of this person that's been so emotional my whole life. Let's talk about me personally, right? And I have to move forward from this in a courageous way. And courage is probably the hardest emotion to even fathom or tackle, because it's literally saying, I cannot be here anymore. And I have to do something different. I have to do something positive, but I'm courageous enough to go and do it. Anyway, so getting to that point in a relationship and saying, hey, I'm courageous enough to actually talk to you. I'm courageous enough to go back to church, whatever it is. I don't know why religion keeps coming up, but it's probably because you just got baptized, dude. But anyway, yes, it is a conversation, but it's a realization of where you are at in life. And if you can express your emotions, especially to your significant other, you'll be able to connect so much easier.
Yeah. We talk a lot about emotional regulation and emotional intelligence a lot. And I think, as being emotionally intelligent and regulated as yourself, like, we all have our failures and our successes, but I would say on a scale of things, like, you are very emotionally intelligent.
Thanks,
that
man.
You can't take that away from yourself. Emotionally regulated, everybody can get better at that sometimes, but I think you do a very good job. And what stops us from being in grief and just choosing to be in an enlightenment?
The thing stopping you is the fact that you actually don't know where you're at, first of all, right? Like, I don't know why I'm feeling how I'm feeling, and then what do I do with it, right? I'm going to go get mad at my girl. I'm going to go drink and I'm going to numb it off. I'm going to go smoke or whatever it is, and I don't want to feel this way, so I'm going to choose to feel something else, right? So it's understanding where you're at, but the reason that you wouldn't move forward is because you don't know where you're at, and this is just the norm, and you know how to fix it. Emotional regulation and embodiment is saying I can go from... So like the emotion chart, I wish we could pull it up always and just have it. But
I have it saved in my favorites on my phone.
So the opposite of shame is enlightenment. So like every single emotion has a positive opposite.
Yes.
And courage is the one that doesn't. So courage is this precipice of like, hey, I got to level up. This is my glass ceiling. I can go. Anyway, but if you're in grief and you're like, hey, I just don't want to feel sad, but I want to feel something else, right? You have to actually embody what grief is for you to understand what I think the opposite of it is bliss. No, grief would be joy, right? So if I'm sad, the opposite of this is happy.
Yes. Right?
So yes, you get that choice. But now that I'm sad, it's this trigger state for me to say, oh, wow, I know that I don't have to feel this. So what is X, Y, and Z that I can do in my life to automatically shift me to joy, right? But that's where you have to understand yourself and what makes you happy versus what makes you sad. So for me, I grew up, but from like teenage years, I was like super suicidal, right? And always in my head and always an emotional wreck and definitely not emotionally regulated at all, right? I would always outsource it to somebody else because I never want to feel it for myself. But now I know, having advanced and being emotionally intelligent, thank you for that compliment, by the way, the regulation part of it is the hardest thing. And the embodiment part of it is the hardest thing. But now I know that when I go down to shame and guilt, that's when I know I'm almost in breakthrough because the opposite of it is bliss and enlightenment, right? So if I get suicidal now at 33 years old with 4 kids and a wife, I'm like, all right, cool. This is a shedding for me. It's like now I'm really, really close to something really, really good. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's understanding where you're at. And that's why I would love to teach this to everybody, right? But for men, it's just like, oh, no, it's easier to block it off. It's easier to get my shit done. It's easier to brush everything under the rug and not talk about it because I'm not supposed to lash out. right? So a lot of the times, like men just get stuck in this anger cycle, in this ego cycle, where they go there and they don't know what to do with it. So they'll go put it in like the gym, or they'll go put it in their systems in their business, right? But a lot of the times when we do that, we become very avoidant from our actual like state and our relationships. And so if we go and do that and we're regulating ourselves, right? But we don't know how to push past the anger and push past the ego into the more positive emotions, then that's where disconnection with our relationships actually happen.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I would love to teach it.
Yeah. What do you think got you from like not being emotionally regulated or intelligent or whatever you want to call it, like to being that? I would say for me, it was a lot of like environments that I put myself into, and a lot of, past relationships or, like friendships, whatever, being in those and like seeing, other people maybe not being so much emotionally regulated and like experiencing that, whether it was through my parents or anything else. And going from that, experiencing it all, knowing that I didn't want to be emotionally unregulated. And then like, I feel like naturally over time, I just like became that. I didn't know if it was similar for you or like,
no, but what you just said is the answer. It's the experience of it.
Yeah.
It's lived experience. It's called embodiment. You have to go through it. Nobody gets a pass. Nobody does.
Nobody.
I go through it every single day, bro. Like I feel everything every day.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me even want to look into these things or study them or teach them to somebody else, right? Not saying that I'm any kind of expert, but it's like, I'm not emotionally regulated. I emotionally regulate myself every day, right? Like I'm not emotionally like intelligent. It's like the intelligence comes from, okay, cool. I feel this today and I know what to do with it.
Yes.
Right. So we could talk about emotions all the time. And when I started like coaching relationships and coaching emotions, I hadn't embodied a lot. I just understood it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting that we're on the Watt podcast because Watt taught me embodiment, right? Watt actually taught me, hey, you have to go through these things. You have to become this person, right?
Where do you think you recognize that in Watt?
So I came into Watt needing like masculine examples in my life, right? And I think that's kind of where I recognized it, where it was just like, I realized through the mirror of a lot of the other guys in the group, even yourself, where it was like, hey, they have something that I don't, and I need to learn it. I want to learn this side of life, just like I want to teach my side of life to them, right? And as I stepped into having to learn, choosing to learn through the examples of the other men in Watt, I went through all of the stages emotionally that I realized that I had never been through, right? Like courage, I talk about courage a lot because that was the one that just recently, 3, 4, 5 months ago that I went through. Like it's a training ground, dude. Yeah. It's like, oh shit, like, damn, I'm really egotistical. Like I'm pushing away all these opportunities, right? But it's just because I'm scared, right? So if I have to push through and all the things that I used to teach, it's like, no, I have to embody this and live it, right? So if I teach that fear is right before something good is going to happen and you should push past your fear, right? It's like the way the superior man is living on your edge is finding fear and living there and consistently just pushing past it, right? Okay, cool. If that's what I'm teaching, then I have to actually go do it.
Yeah.
Right? If courage is choosing something that's unknown, I have to go do that, right? If trust and reason and all these things, which are the positive emotions above courage, I have to start trusting myself. I have to look at my situation with reason and understand that this is just perfect the way that it is. Like it's all a training ground.
Yeah.
And I think that Watt showed me that through the examples of other men. Yeah. And another topic maybe for another day, but it's becoming whole, right? It's understanding the feminine and the masculine. It's understanding negative emotions and positive emotions, right?
Yeah.
You can't just talk about them. You actually have to embody it and live it. Right. And so I think that no one is absent of the journeys and the trials that come emotionally. I think everybody has to go through them.
I think we've talked a lot about your significant other being like a mirror to you.
Right.
Like it shows you your flaws. It shows you like where you could step up, where you could be. And it does that amazingly. Very
frustratingly
too. Sometimes.
Yeah, bro.
I think Watt has also been that for a lot of guys.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I think it's something that they didn't even know they like needed as well. Like, because, the most intimate relationship that they've ever had in their entire life is their spouse.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Watt does so well is it identifies that you do need relationships outside of that. because you might get a mirror that's facing this way, but you don't have a mirror that's on your side or something like that, you know? And so I think it identifies other areas of your life that you identify and you educate yourself on to be able to become better. So how do you think that like guys in what like have impacted your story versus how your spouse could?
Okay. Well, I'm going to answer in a little different way, but
sure.
So I believe that Jimmy talks about it all the time. We've had lots of conversations about it, but I believe that what picks you up right where you are and where you need to be, right? And then it realizes who you need to become. But this is all subconscious, and this is all from the status of like the institution.
Sure.
You joining WAT as a man don't really understand that yet. You're just like, oh, this looks fucking cool.
Yeah.
Right? But what picks you up in this state where you say, okay, cool, I'm good at making money, I'm good at having relationships, I'm good at X, Y, and Z. It's going to expose what you're not good at. It will.
Yeah.
And it's not because that's the program's goal. It's
why do you think that is?
It's because I believe that the program was built around being the most complete version of a man that you could. Right?
And it's embodied by all 50 men, not by just
one.
one.
So that's where this is such a cool opportunity. And like, I will give Jimmy props till the day that I'm dead, because you can have somebody that is 70 years old and has lived a whole entire life and has made multiple millions of dollars. Right. And you can have somebody that's 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we can throw these ideas off of each other and learn from this mirror that we're getting. Right. And so a lot of the times when people that are in relationships like myself, I'd been married for 10, 11 years before I joined WAT. And you're right. Like, she was my best friend and my only relationship, really. Some guys come into WAT where their relationship is on the fritz and they have a whole bunch of good guy friends. Right. And so that's where it's just like, dude, it's the perfect example of becoming whole. Yeah. It's sovereignty in a sense. And I think that's where a lot of people are trying to get, but we don't really consciously understand it. Sovereignty is standing in your own lane by yourself and being okay with it, not needing anybody else, but then knowing that connection is valuable. Right. So that's what WAT has taught me, because you have these guys that are just solid in certain areas of their lives and then other guys that aren't. And then we all have something to teach each other. Right. And that's what a relationship is. Like, I'm not a relationship coach just for men and women. It's like, dude, I want to teach you what life actually, like the transaction of life. I think that's the cool part about WAT.
A lot of guys that I see in WAT struggle to embody some part of the program. And whether it's like, maybe it's the masculine side, a lot of it's the feminine side of like understanding the feminine and things like that. Right. And then sometimes it's like, you know, somewhere in between of just like, you know, picking up this from somebody or picking up that from somebody. And a lot of guys do a lot better at it than others of like, you know, kind of getting a broad understanding from everybody and trying to pick everybody's brain. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's always resistance when you don't understand if you need to go there, right? So how do I explain that better? So for me, throughout WAT, and I'll be transparent, I became somebody I didn't necessarily want to be for a period of time.
Do you think that was because of WAT?
Thinking that, well, hear me out.
Okay.
Thinking that was what I needed for my relationship and for my life, right? But then knowing that was the learning curve or the learning experience for me to become more whole and then come back to myself, right? So for me, I rejected this like provider masculine role for a year in WAT, right? And then all of a sudden it just hit me in the fucking face. And I was like, okay, cool. I gotta go work. I gotta get my shit. I gotta figure out my bank account, my finances, all the shit, right? For some people, it might not hit them in the face as hard as it did for me. And maybe they won't learn that way, right? But I think that through this whole thing, it has to break down the perception of reality that you essentially have to become whole. And then you have to find yourself again. And I think that's what really cool. That's a cool part of what WAT has done for me. I can't speak for everybody else.
Sure.
Right. But what WAT did for me, I came in very much confident in a lot of aspects in my life. And then it literally slapped me in the face and said, fuck you, bro. You get to learn this other side.
Yeah.
Right. And once you learn it, now you can embody both aspects of your life and become more of a whole person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Why do you think people struggle with doing that?
Because we sit in this thing that's called pride, this egotistical state, right? Where we we push past anger. Like, it makes us so fucking pissed that somebody wants to necessarily change us.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to change, right? And I don't believe anybody should change if they don't want to. Do what you want, right? But if it's beneficial for your life, if you're lacking in certain areas and you need to look at something, this is where the ego has to be stripped down and die, right? Like, God consciousness is without ego. It's like, if you're a Christian, it's like Christ literally is, he puts down all of his guards to then build everybody up. And in doing so, it builds him up as well, right? So he strips down everything. And that's a perfect example of kind of what we're talking about, is that like men that you might run up in against the wall and say like, yeah, this isn't for me, or you might drop off in the program or whatever it is. I hope that that's not the case.
Sure.
But if that is the case, then you run up against the wall that might be too like egotistically, or like it might be too hard for you to even look at, right? And that's when people usually run away. That's when divorces happen. That's when things like that usually go south. And so, yeah, Watt really picks you up where you are, and then it teaches you the other side of life, and you get to accept it. But for me, it's like I lost myself for a little bit, but I learned the lesson. But I didn't really lose myself. It was saying, okay, cool, go learn masculinity, go learn sovereignty, go learn being okay by yourself. Now, embody that and put it back into a container where you feel the best, right? And so for me, it's not that I'm going to go and grind my ass off like other guys might. For me, it's I know what the grind is now, and I'm going to come back with my wife, and I'm going to like talk with her, right? I'm going to like start planning the dates more. I'm going to start paying for the more things, right? Sure. It's like, so it's implementing both aspects of it. And I believe, I just think that Watt is the journey of the man you are becoming. And I think that a lot of people might just stay stuck in the man that they are.
How do you think they push past that pride though?
It's courage. Like, for me, it's so simple because I've memorized this emotion chart. Like, the map of consciousness is my fucking life. So the way to push past ego is to strip it and go into something that's courageous, right? But to strip ego, you have to push into courage, because nobody wants to get past this thing that they think that they are. Yeah. Right? So it's trying new things. It's things that scare the hell out of you. It's talking to people that you might not necessarily talk to. It's being in the rooms you've never been in. Right? That's courageous action. It's working out like you've never worked out. It's looking at your finances like you've never done it before. Like, it's doing the thing you've never done, even though it's fucking scary. Yeah. Like, that's how you strip pride and ego. Huh. Right?
That's interesting.
Yeah, dude.
Going back a little bit, you talked about how Jesus like stripped himself, God stripped himself of everything and just like built himself back up better and the people around him. I think it's interesting how sometimes we tend to go back to the things that we were like taught when we were younger, because I know you're not super active in the church anymore. And so that's interesting to me, because I do hear this a lot, and I feel like a lot of like morals and compasses and things like in people's life do come from like some sort of religion. So I guess not being in the church as involved anymore, where do you think that comes from for you? Morals, compass. I think it's like, because, if we don't have a guideline, like where do we get that guideline? Or do we need one?
Religion is made for some people.
Okay.
And not for others. And guidelines from the creator, God, universe, deity, higher power, whatever you want to believe in, comes down to what, I would go very, very deep with this, and I don't want to like confuse anybody, but my question to you is, do you believe that there's good and bad?
Do I believe there's good and bad?
Yes.
I do.
Okay. So like that's where guidelines would become very beneficial.
Sure.
Right? And I think this is probably why I was fumbling over my words for a second, because it's deeper than just your question. Yeah. Guidelines become very beneficial if you believe that there's like the agency that God has given us, if you're Christian, right, is contingent on either following or not following.
Yes.
And if you believe that, then follow. And those are perfect guidelines for you, right? And then it comes down to, okay, cool. If God gave us this agency and it's either black or white, it's good or bad, what's your relationship with God? If you follow him, are you blessed? Yes. Sure. If you don't follow him, are you not? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what would your relationship with God be? So for me, guidelines are, do I feel good doing this?
Yes.
Right? Does it make me feel a certain way doing this? And so my guidelines are more emotional guidelines,
Yeah.
and same for my kids, right?
Yeah.
Because necessarily a reason that I'm not super active in the church is because of the shame that I felt, right? So why institutionalize myself in something that makes me feel bad about myself?
Yeah.
That was kind of the guidelines for me.
Sure.
And then for my kids as well, is that like I raise my kids without shame. And so they like everything is acceptance and everything is curiosity for me. And that's my relationship with my God, with my creator,
Sure.
right? Because there was a creator. This happened. This didn't happen out of nowhere. But I believe after being a father is that like, there's nothing that my kid could do that I wouldn't forgive him for. And that's my relationship with God, right? Yes, there are guidelines.
And it's interesting because I think that's
Yeah.
God's relationship with us in most religions.
Yeah. In most, and I'm not bagging religion. And I think that religion was necessarily like just this, it's this lane. It's perfect. I love religion because it teaches spirituality. And that's what I want for people is to be connected to something. Right. So
where my question is like guided, I guess, and I could have phrased it a little bit better, is if you grew up without the guidelines that you did have and you believed what you do believe now, where do you think that would have taken you?
We've had this conversation with a couple of people. Like, there's a guy in our group. He was like, dude, I grew up without the church and the church saved me. Right. And I was like, dude, the church killed me.
Yeah.
And now that I'm not in the church, I feel a lot better about myself.
Sure.
So it's just like, and that's why I was talking about my kids. Right. So if I grew up with a lot of shame tied around certain things, that's what I'm not teaching my kids.
Yes.
So my guidelines and my morals that I was taught in the church were solely emotional based. And that's like my reality, right? It doesn't have to be everybody's. I'm not even trying to convince anybody of doing anything other than what makes them feel good.
Yeah.
There's commitment to a better life and a better way of living, right? But that is solely up to you because your better way of living is 100% different than mine.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So
my better quality of life is different than your better quality of life.
Because for me, it's like if I want to go out and I want to go dance or go to a club with my wife that we love to do because it creates so much connection for us now. We were never able to do that when we were going to church because it just wasn't in the guidelines and the standards. But if you agree with those guidelines and standards and they make you feel good, then that's for you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I don't believe that necessarily that God, again, my belief, not anybody else's, but I don't believe that necessarily that we are, I believe that he loves us regardless of the circumstances that we're in, as long as we are choosing for us and not for somebody else. And that's where like self-awareness comes in. And a lot of people are not going to think the same way.
Sure. Yeah. Everybody has their own opinion.
Yeah.
Going based off of how you were raised.
Yeah.
And how you are raising your children, do you see that there are prime differences in, I guess, their like behaviors and understandings and actions because of the way you're raising them versus the way you were raised?
Yeah. This is going to suck for people to hear, but they're not scared. Like they're not scared. They're not scared to talk at me. They're not scared to yell at me. They're not scared to voice their opinion. They're not scared to ask me a really hard question. They're not scared. Like they're not scared. They could lie to me, but when they do, like we talk about it. You know what I mean? If they fuck up, we talk about it.
Yeah.
But the way that I was raised was I was just fucking scared all the time. And so I was not telling anybody any truth. I was lying about everything because I had to keep this perception of myself that everybody else was okay with. Right. And so I raised my kids without shame and without fear because that was exactly what I would have needed as a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
that's interesting actually, because that's more similar to how I was raised.
Really?
Because we didn't, we weren't normal churchgoers on Sundays and things like that. I was introduced to, a non-denominational church probably around fourth grade or so. And so from that to, like immersing myself in this and choosing that it is like if I follow this, then I will get a better quality of life. Yeah. And that's kind of like the inference that but I made it for myself, versus like being institutionalized in it in a sense and growing up in that. So that it is very interesting to hear that perspective.
Well, you're talking about cycles of life.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same ones. Like it's across the board, unless you're maybe like the prophet of the Mormon church, right?
Yeah.
But even them, you don't think that they fucked up in their life somehow? Like air quotes,
Or
fucked up?
questioned what they believed and everything.
Everybody has these different cycles of life. Like your cycle of life was like you partied at what age, right?
Yeah,
like 14. You know what I mean? It's like I started partying at 14. It's like, well, Matt started like the first drink he ever took was at 28.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like everybody cycles through different things. You find spirituality in a different way. Like the church saved you. The church didn't. You see what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it's all fucking emotional states.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'll go back to that till I'm blue in the face because like you didn't feel good the way you were living. So you chose something that helped you feel better. Right.
So people that choose to stay in a religion or stay in the church specifically, like as you grew up in, what would your advice be to them on like raising their children to not feel that shame and guilt around everything?
I mean, the LDS culture is doing a lot better about it now. Right. Like you can go and it's very much like like this is not the right way to say it, but pro-choice, right? It's like, it's kind of like you choose. And if like they're doing a very good job, if I was raised in the church now, I probably would be fine. Right. Because it's not so much fire and brimstone. It's not so much God-fearing Christians. It's not so much like, it is very much like more accepting and more you choose you. And I love that. Right. It does confuse me because like the church preaches that it's an ever-changing church and that God's an ever-changing God, and that's amazing. But it is confusing to somebody that was like put in a box very much, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, for people that are raising their kids that way, I mean, if it's something, I always say that if it's something that makes me feel good, I will be there. And so it's a simple question of like, hey. And without shame, because like we do trick our kids into going to church and we convince people and like we shame people to do things and we try and control people to do things that we want. Right. But it's a simple question that being that your little kid or your brother or sister is completely different from you. I think it poses the questions that ask like, hey, how do you feel when we go to church? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what are something that makes you feel good? What makes you feel bad? Like, talk to me about what you're learning. Do you believe it? And this is going to raise hairs too, but like I even asked my kids, like the church teaches the plan of salvation, right? I asked my kids, I was like, what do you think happens after you die? I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
I've never been there.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and they've come up with some of the coolest things. And so I always say like, if I'm talking in absolutes, don't listen to me. If I tell you that I know for a fact, it's like, well, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Sure.
so a lot of the times when, I don't know is my best answer. And so like with my kids, it's like, hey, what happens after we die? And I was like, I have a really big hope that I can be with you again and I can see you again, but I have no idea.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel that would be a really good situation for us, but I'm not sure. Right. And Western civilization, even though Christianity is like really, really new and still is spreading throughout the whole world, but like this is solely Western civilization and the rest of the world lives completely different. So
I would assume you're very adamant on like
this is religion talk at this point, dude.
on understanding your like kids and their emotions and how they feel. And I'm sure that's brought out a lot of expressions that they have that you might not have had as a child.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, dude.
How do you like go about that and like bring those conversations up to have with your kids? Like if you could like just give somebody advice on like how to have a better relationship with your kid in that factor, like how would you do it?
Let them feel is what I would say. So for so long, and every single parent silences their kids. Stop crying, shut up, right? Don't do that. Why'd you act that way? It's like, and that usually prolongs their emotional state because they're just looking for somebody to comfort them. I don't know if this is necessarily the answer you're looking for, but the advice that I would give to parents in learning the emotions of their kids is to let them feel it and to comfort them in it. So if instead of saying, hey, shut up, or hey, stop crying, I guarantee this happens 10 out of 10 times. If you get down on their level, give them a hug and tell them it is okay to cry. It will be over 90% quicker than it would have if you had just said, stop crying, right? And so it's giving them the permission to feel. It's allowing them to be okay expressing. Like my house is fucking chaos. Like it is, we are planned. We know what we're doing. We have schedules, right?
Yeah.
but emotionally it's chaos. And so as a dad, being regulated is my biggest freaking goal, right? Because I want my kids to be able to yell and scream and cry in my house. I want my kids to like talk back to me, right? I want them to try and create a scenario where they're leading, not where they're just being controlled, right? And because in every single area outside of your home, like school, work, play, they're being controlled by somebody else. But when they're at my house, let it free. You know what I mean? Because it gives them permission to just be okay being themselves.
All that is so interesting. And I think a lot of people that are listening would like, they're like, where's the structure? Like, how are your kids like, you know, gonna make it, you know, things like that. This is interesting because my girlfriend actually brought me a study recently that said that the biggest determining factor of like how your kid will be raised or like how they will grow up, like their intelligence, their ability to go and do things is not based off of pretty much anything that you do or say, say to them or like these things. It's how you act as a parent and who you are as a parent. So like your day-to-day, your life, like, are you a disciplined person? Are you an intelligent person? All these things, that is what determines their success, a success in a like air quotes, of course. But it's so interesting because I think you agree that a lot of people would disagree with a lot of things that you just said, but I think it's so genius because like you are allowing your kids to just be their full selves. Yeah. And so I think what that will allow them to do as they grow up in life is it will allow them to be absolutely whatever they want to be.
Yeah. Like, and that's because they are completely different than me. And it goes straight back to you being married to somebody else that's completely different than you.
Sure.
It's like, why am I trying to control this person? Let me learn from them. Yeah. Right. But there is this example that we're trying to set. And this is what Watt is really cool. We'll come back to that. Yeah. The man that you are becoming, your kid needs it. Yeah. Like your kid needs you to be emotionally regulated. Your kid needs you to be, I mean, more or less disciplined. Sure. Your kid needs you to model a life after, right? So and for me, like Watt's taught me so many beautiful things. But over the past 2 years, it's like consistently in the gym, consistently in the bank account, consistently at work, consistently like planning things with my kids, being there emotionally for them, letting them express like, bro, it has helped me become so much more whole. Yeah. I fucking hate it because like it tore me down. Sure. Absolutely tore me apart just to build me back up.
Isn't it crazy how much you don't realize that? Like you said, going back to the pride and the ego, like you go into this program and you're like, you know, I got my stuff together. Like for you, it's like, I'm a relationship coach, you know, all this stuff. And then you go in and you're like, oh crap.
I didn't even know that. My dad never taught me that. You know what I mean?
Literally. And, or seeing like how all these different people like were raised or grew up, you know, going into the mother wound or father wound and like, you know, talking to these people and you're like, oh, maybe that's why you're that way. Or, you know, and you start to like realize and put these things together. But it allows you to go back and just like perform at a level that you didn't even know was there, like for your kids, for your family and everything like that. And I think that's why it's so beautiful.
And for yourself too. Yeah. The one thing that I would kind of tell everybody, and I tell relationships too, and when we coach them is like, none of this started when you got married and none of this started when you just hit adulthood. All of this started before. And it's really easy. Like, yeah, you can go back and talk about like inner child stuff and the healing world and the traumas and all that stuff. But when you're facing it head on, you're like, why do I act this way? Or why can't I figure this the fuck out? It's like, it's not necessarily a problem with you. It's just something that from your past programming that we're trying to uncover. And so going back to like the mirrors or like what Watt is or like what the men in Watt like have taught me or will teach somebody else that necessarily joins or wants to become a part of this. It's going to teach you the most about yourself that you need to essentially like push past, step into courage and become, right? So yeah, I don't know if there was a topic for this. It's like the man that you actually do need to become. And that's what Watt can teach you. It's actually kind of cool, dude.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, bro. One last question.
Done.
If you were to go back to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Focus. Yeah, bro. Follow one course of action until success. That's what I would tell him.
Love it.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you, Matt.
Hell yeah. Got you, bro.